Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Charles Sabanson, and welcome you guys to another episode of the Dreamers Pro Show, where we cover everything from sports, hot topics, classic debates, entertainment, and when we give you guys a fresh perspective on things and how we see them. Now, this one here today is going to be a very interesting show because it's something a little bit different from what we normally discuss. But before we even get into this, before we even get into it, please make sure you like the video and sub to the channel if you haven't already. Let's get into this topic here. As you guys know, the Lakers now are in search of their head coach, although many reports out there are saying that it's going to be J.J. Redick. So that's one bit of news. But we've also been following the Lakers in terms of their relationship to Bronny James, LeBron's oldest son. And for the past, 5, 6, 7 months, all of us have been speculating whether or not the Lakers are going to draft Bronny James. And as things began to pan out and, he started to do tryouts and all of that, he just miraculously ended up falling to the 55th pick. And you guessed it, what team has the 55th pick? The Los Angeles Lakers. So now it's beginning to look like that the Lakers are going to bring him on. But that's not really the heart of it. It's a part of what we want to discuss, but that's not the heart of it. The heart of it is the following. This morning I came across a show called Unsportsmanlike. It's an ESPN show, and it features a panel of Evan Cohen, Chris Canty, and Michelle Smallman. It's an ESPN show, and I was watching it this morning. I think it's the first time I've actually seen it. And essentially what this crew was reacting to was the news of Bronny James turning down multiple teams because apparently multiple teams are trying to get a hold of Bronny James, and he's basically shunning them. He's refusing to show up. He's not working out for them. And he seems like the only two teams that he is willing to work out for are the Lakers and the Phoenix Suns, which is interesting. So the panel was essentially talking about the fact that how they have never seen a situation like this. And they were basically saying that this is essentially nepotism. And they were saying that the only reason he's in the position that he's in is because he's LeBron James's son. Because if you look at his actual play in college and his physical attributes, it doesn't warrant a player who decides I want to work out with this team and I don't want to work out with that team. And they had a pretty robust conversation around it. So that's what we want to play right now. So we want to play exactly what they had to say. I want you guys to listen to it in its entirety because I think they made some pretty interesting points, and then we're going to come back and unpack what they had to say. Take a listen to the crew here.
Oh, Evan, my, how this has turned. Remember in the beginning of this process when Bronny James said, I just want to fulfill my dream of being in the NBA. I just want to go about this process. I'm just a regular prospect like everybody else. Well, reality has hit, and it's slowly but surely been coming out. But the fact that other teams might be interested in Bronny James and they can't get a hold of him or get him in his building because of a potential, as Wendy outlined, draft promise that he could go to the Lakers, and his agent, Rich Paul, doesn't want him necessarily to visit with other teams because he doesn't want him on a two-way contract. When have we ever heard of a player who is projected to go between, 40 and 55, 58 maybe, and they're not going to every possible visit that they can, that they're not embracing every aspect of this process or wanting any team that could have potential interest in them to see what they can do? But that's why at the beginning of this entire thing, I was like, why are we pretending that Bronny James is an average prospect? He can say all the right things, but his actions and that of Rich Paul and Clutch, and frankly of LeBron and the Lakers, have shown you that he's not the average prospect. He's LeBron James's son, and he's being treated as such.
Does Bronny James want to play in the NBA, or does he want to play with his dad? This is two different things. These are two different things. Gavoni's report yesterday indicating teams can't get him in the building, to me, means he just wants to play with his dad. Now, in theory, that is okay. In that scenario, you're almost better off undrafted. You should just tell everybody you do not want to be drafted. Because in that, you could just sign with the Lakers then. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't have to be a two-way deal. You're an undrafted free agent that signs a standard NBA contract with the team that wants you and the team that you want. Because I think Rich Paul is the best agent in the NBA. Let's not get it twisted. And this is exactly why he's the best agent in the NBA.
Certainly the most powerful.
Yeah, because he is doing everything possible for his clients, even if it seems to the rest of us like it is completely and utterly unreasonable. It is ridiculous that a player that averaged 5 points a game in college, now granted, his preparation and his season cut short because of an unfortunate heart condition. I am not blaming Bronny James for the late start, all of that stuff, right?
Of course not.
But
the numbers are the numbers.
The numbers are the numbers. Exactly right. Like, this is all about him going to play with his dad. To not take visits with any team that calls you is unbelievable to me. He doesn't want to play in the NBA based on the perception that we are getting right now. He wants to play with the Los Angeles Lakers and his father. Now, that is okay, but there's one other thing that Gavoni said there, Smalls, dealing with the repercussions of what happens if he gets drafted. So wait a minute. So if a young man who, by all accounts, is a wonderful young man, and Bronny James, everybody says great things about him, fulfills a lifelong dream by going to the NBA, there's going to be repercussions by somebody drafting him, averaging 5 points a game or whatever it is at a USC? What are we talking about here? He should ask to not be drafted.
So you heard what the panel had to say there. As a matter of fact, before we produced this show, we actually published a poll. We ran a poll on our channel about 2 hours ago. And you can go and vote and leave your comments. But essentially, the question was this to the audience. We said, are you for or against nepotism? Out of the 2,000 people that have voted, and there's going to be more people by the time the show comes out, 26% of the voters said yes, while 74% said no. Let me read some of the comments. One person said, this actually is not an easy poll. I'm 100% for parents helping open doors for their children. Good parents want to do that. The issue is when kids did nothing to earn their opportunity and they don't put in the effort and are unqualified to fill that role, whatever it may be. Another person said, with great opportunity comes great responsibility. It's the lack of the latter that makes people resent the former. Another person said, I'm not against nepotism. It's been around since inception. Another person said, nothing wrong with putting your people in place once you get in, as long as they have the know-how. Another person said, for anybody that says they're against it, keep the same energy if you create a successful company or are part of something successful. Do not pass it down to your kids or try to put it in your kids put your kid in the best position to succeed. Let them get out there, let them get it out of the mud. And a few other people weighed in on the issue. I even asked my wife about it, and I said, "What are your thoughts on nepotism? We just had a daughter, and I'm like, what do you think about it?" And she said she's somewhere in the middle. She's for it and she's against it. For it in the sense that, look, if I have a company and I have children, and I'm going to leave the company to the children. Now, she said, if, for example, I want to make one of my kids the manager and they don't have the attributes and they're simply not good enough, then I'll have somebody else run the company and then maybe they'll just get shares of the profits. That's what she said, right? What are my thoughts on this as it pertains to Bronny James? Clearly, this is nepotism here, and it's quite overt. Now, what surprises me is the following. I'm more surprised that what's happening with, and obviously he has an agent in Rich Paul, and I don't know the inner workings of what's going on here. But when I listened to him a few weeks ago, seems like a very sharp guy, very, very sharp guy. I'm talking about Bronny James. And he was saying that he just wants to make his own name. And if you want to make a name for yourself and kind of step out of the shadow of your father, LeBron James, then one would tell you I would even want to go to an organization that he didn't even play for. I would want to go somewhere else and make a name for myself. But in this particular situation here, it seems like as if he's being kind of shooed in to the position of the Lakers to go be directly with his father. Now, he may be saying, hey, maybe who was better to learn from than my dad? But then you're around him all your life, so you can still learn basketball from him. If you're around him, you've been around him for years. So you have that aspect of it. In terms of nepotism, it's an interesting one. It really, really is. Because for the parents watching, I think that when you have kids and you're working, you want to do everything in your power to ensure that your kids have a better life than you. But then there's a balance in that. Because yes, you want them to have a better life than you, want them to have an easier life, but you don't want them to now become complacent You don't want them to become entitled. And some kids are just sitting there waiting to cash in on pappy's or mammy's money. That's just how they are. They ain't worth nothing, a damn thing. All they're doing is just waiting to cash in. And for me, I've seen various situations. Of course, you guys know I'm from Nigerian descent. And in our family, we're Igbos, and my dad and them, they're from a number of states, so they're like heavy into the culture. And one of the traditions there is that if you're a successful person, you usually bequeath all of your wealth, or the majority of it, if you have sons, to your sons. And then the daughters, and the rationale is that, well, the daughters are going to get married, they're going to go to another family, they're going to take on a different name. So if I give all of my wealth or some of my wealth to my daughters, like I'm giving it to the other family, right? Instead of keeping it in my family. That's kind of the rationale. But things have been changing over the last few years. People are behaving quite differently. Why do I bring that up? Because this thing of, okay, you're going to give your wealth, or your son, your first son, which is really important, going to take over your company and do all of that. Some people are for that, right? And I know a person, he's a very, very popular media personality. His name is Man Like Chico. You may know him, you may not know him. You can Google him. He's a very, very popular guy, always hanging out with Burna Boy and all of that. And his father, who's good friends with my dad, he's a very, 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 very wealthy guy. Like, there's just no two ways about it. He produces aluminum and all of that. And his son, who's now the top dog under his dad's company and his first son, this dude is burning money fast. I mean, he is balling out of control. He is balling out of control. I think he just bought 2 G-Wagon Barbus, G-Wagons, Lamborghinis, Ferraris, flying private, you name it. You name it, right? Now, if I, on the other hand, and I don't need to, by the way, if I had to borrow $100 from my dad, first thing I know, I'm not going to get that $100 that same day. I'm not going to, because of course we got to go through the expert. By the time he sends you that money, you would have already solved the problem. It's a totally different thing. He's like, you go out there, you make it for yourself, and then you don't spend time looking at what, and that's just how he views it. But it comes down to and then you have some people, regardless of the gender of the kids, they're going to give all their money to their kids equally. But it's an interesting conversation nevertheless. In the case of Bronny James and LeBron, I think definitely that's what's taking place here. And I think is a reality of life. And I think that, some people are going to handle their kids differently. I remember an interview to close here. I remember an interview that took place, I think it was on Forbes or something like that, with Puff Daddy years ago. And it was when he bought his son, Justin, a Rolls Royce for his 16th birthday. And the interviewer said, you as a businessman, you who didn't grow up with wealth, do you think that sends a good example to your son to buy him a Rolls Royce Phantom at 16 years old? And Puffy got pretty defiant. He's like, he's my child and I can do whatever the hell I want. I can buy him whatever gift I want to give. There's some people like that as well. So as the audience, what I want to know from you guys, what do you think about the situation about Bronny James? And more importantly, in a larger scale, what do you think about nepotism? Are you for it, or are you against it, or are you in between? Whatever you guys think, leave your thoughts in the comments and we catch you guys on the next show. Peace.